So do you have secret selfies of yourself as both Batman and Superman in your iPhone currently?
Yeah, yeah, I do. And Lex.
Amazing.
Maybe for Halloween I'll be Wonder Woman.
Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, sad, confused begins now.
I'm Josh Horowitz, and today on Happy, Sad, Confused, Nicholas Hoult is here. It's been 5 years since Nick has been on the podcast. What happened to us? We're going to try to find out and also try to squeeze in some talk about his very busy fall. NOSFERATU, The Order, Juror number 2. Oh, and he's also Lex Luthor in the Superman movie next year, so we'll hit on that. But to me, he's still just Nick, who taught me how to season my sandwiches. Here he is back on the pod where he belongs. Hey, Nick.
5 years. 5 years. I can't believe it's been that long. That makes me very sad that it's
What
been that long.
happened?
But I'm
What
glad that
happened
you
to us?
remember the sandwich seasoning, and that was the big takeaway from our last chat because it's
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
Has your sandwich life improved?
Sandwich life has improved. You really have taught me nothing about film or acting, but seasoning
I
my
can't teach
tasty
anything. I
sandwiches.
can't.
Yeah,
I can't teach you anything about film or acting. I don't know anything about that. I
that's
just
not
know a
true.
little bit of salt and pepper on a sandwich is useful.
The good news is I did revisit our past 3 conversations, and the bar is so low on anything substantive. It's just it's so we're already ahead of the game, I think.
Are we going to have a substantive chat? Are we going to chat about serious things?
I don't know. Is that our vibe? I don't. Well, you can try.
I, I'm willing to go there. I'm emotionally available to you and only you.
Appreciate
Sometimes
that.
my kids, but
I appreciate that. I like to think of myself as the third Nicholas Hoult child.
saw an image of you stuck to my fridge and it made me happy.
Okay, so
If
I
you
don't
could do,
even.
if you could do little drawings of stick family us, that would be useful.
Okay, I'll get that over to you. That's about my drawing capability.
That's your homework.
Um, so yeah, since our 2 favorite topics generally on this podcast, at least with our conversations, are food and film.
Hmm.
Which of the 3 films that you're promoting this fall had the best catering? Should we start there?
Juror number 2, I think, had the best catering, Tony's Catering, because Clint Eastwood has been using them as his caterers for maybe 30 or 40 years. Um, they're his peeps, they're his go-tos. Food was fantastic. And also, this is actually, let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
Character, eating like the character. Rob Eggers wanted me to lose weight for during number 2, look at me, I'm getting the movies mixed up, for Nosferatu, and that
Yeah.
shot first. So for Nosferatu, I wasn't eating. I stopped drinking and I wasn't eating particularly huge amounts to lose weight for that. Then the order, Bob Matthews was actually, he didn't drink. He was a very clean living person, but he was very healthy as well. He lifted weights and stuff, and so I was trying to, like, and he was kind of physically bigger. So then I was eating lots and lifting weights, trying to get more like him. And then during number 2, I was just a person, so I just continued to eat normally.
Well,
And
so you,
the catering was very good, so I got to enjoy the good catering, and that was
I would.
very nice. Because also the really lovely thing about working with Clint Eastwood is he kind of, a lot of the time you'll finish at lunchtime. He
Right.
doesn't like to do a lot of takes or like spend like long days on set. So we'd go in, you'd have breakfast, you'd shoot for 6, maybe 7 hours or something, break for lunch. And normally on another film, you'd go back for like another 6 hours or something. With Clint, everyone sits around. He still goes to, where everyone eats, and you all sit there and have a nice meal and maybe a bit of dessert, a bit of pie or something, and then you go home. So it's a very nice way of working.
It does feel like he cracked the code. He's like figured out how to make it like quick and efficient and somehow also like, creatively so satisfying. Like it sounds like all the Clintisms are true. I assume he doesn't call action. There are only 2 or 3 takes. All of that is what you
Yeah, no, there's
experienced.
not there's no action nor cut. It goes quiet. I mean, he's had the same team with him for so many years now. It's very smooth and focused. But it's a wonderful thing that he has. I think he's cracked the code on life in many
Yeah.
ways, and filmmaking. It's a trust he puts in everyone to do their job. Everyone wants to do great because it's Clint, and they care for him. And his process in terms of, he'll go quiet and he'll say whenever you're ready, or just
Right.
go and do the scene, and then you might hear stop, or that's enough of that, and then he'll say, like, one of his favorite sayings, he just says, pretty good. And then you move.
Wait. What, is this a
That was
Curb Your
kind of
Enthusiasm? Were you?
Yeah, I think that's where he
got.
got it. I think that's where he gets it from. But he'll say that, and then we'll move on. He'll say that, and it's, I don't know. I'm not someone who accepts things very easily. Probably, I feel like I'm always like, I'm like, give me one more take, or I could do better, or like whatever. And so it was really interesting going from working with Eggers to Justin Kurzel to Clint. His ability to just trust the process, and the audience, not to spoon feed and not to overhit any elements or anything. I mean, he's got a great musical quality to his films, and I think he's not influenced by what's faddy or like, this is what people want right now, so we're gonna make it big and bust, like loud, and I don't know. He just is and does, and it's the same process in life, that he's got this great calm and collectedness and a wicked sense of humor, and it's just fun being around him. So I felt very lucky to have that experience.
I would imagine also inspiring. I mean, this is a guy in his 90s that still just gets so much out of it. Like, do you imagine yourself the kind of actor that's just going to act until they say, we're good, Nick, you can go to the home?
And then in the home, hopefully I'll be like, hey, you guys want to
put it on a show? What do you think?
Come on, we can do something, right? Do I think I think so. I think I like the community of filmmaking, and that's something, again, I'll say about Clint, because of all these people that he's worked with, who loves, and he's got this great community around him, and also in terms of the community of people that love his movies, that support him as an actor and a filmmaker. So there's, I don't know, I like the process of filmmaking. I like the process of acting. Because maybe we've spoken about this. I feel like you get to live 1,000 lives being an actor. Right. You get to experience so many different walks of life and places and things and ideas and history and whatever it might be, that I feel like it's kind of a secret hack for like getting to live the most life you possibly can whilst you're here in the time we have.
It's also such a
much better than talking about seasoning sandwiches. Look at us go.
Wow, we are so elevated this time. It's also a joy to see you and Toni Collette together again after all these years. This is like one of the fun things. Like, I was actually, to name drop, I just had Tom Hanks on the podcast, and he was talking about reuniting with Robin Wright 30 years after Forrest Gump, and to kind of revisit filmmakers and actors at different points in your life. Talk to me a little bit about the meaning of kind of coming back around to work with Toni now as an adult in such a different time and place in your life. That must have some resonance for you.
You know what? It was really magic. Partly because, I mean, Toni, is such a wonderful person. She brings like light and joy everywhere she goes, and laughter. And so, but it was also something whereby she took great care of me on About a Boy. She really was like a maternal figure to me throughout it, and just set me off on such like the perfect trajectory and course, I suppose, and the example she set of what filmmaking could and should be, and how actors should be. And then we hadn't really seen each other for a long time. So in those like intermittent years between, I also, when you're a kid, you're just doing, and you don't really know, like roughly like, oh, these are famous older people that are in movies, but you don't really know. Like, right. I hadn't seen all her work, and then since, she's given so many wonderful performances as well. So getting to go back and watch all those and watch her even more, and just be blown away by her talent as an actress. And even like, I'll be scrolling through Twitter or whatever, and it'll be like greatest performances in films, and like one of her scenes in Hereditary will come up, and I'll just sit there for like a minute or two watching that, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, she is incredible. Like, I love doing that and seeing like all the little facts, like this was a first take, this moment wasn't scripted, and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, exciting.
I always think about, I was going to say, she worked, I mean, I think she did Sixth Sense, obviously Oscar nominated before you. Yeah. And I think people don't remember how young she was playing a mom. I think she was like 24 or something. So the math did not work at all, but she's amazing in that too.
The first scene we shot together was like her last scene in the movie, the last scene of the movie. And so it was this weird thing where my character, I was looking at Toni now as an adult, she's looking at me, but we know each other so well from a past life, but like a different version of ourselves. And suddenly we're in this scenario. It was really interesting. It was kind of like a short wiring of lots of different emotions and things.
So what, I think we probably talked about a boy way back when. What is your relationship at this point to Killing Me Softly? Is that something you've sung in the last 22 years, or did you retire it then and there?
You know what? I have retired. I think a couple of times people tried to get me up to sing it karaoke, and I was mortified and so embarrassed. But I found out doing press with Toni, it is her karaoke song. And I was like, no, surely not. And she was like, no, no, the cool version, the Fuji's version. And I was like, it's still the same. I was like, I know you're not singing the version from the movie, you know. I can't imagine you've
the
got
definitive version, the only one worth talking about.
I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, the Fuji's version. Does Hugh Grant come out and play the guitar with you when you do it? I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Maybe I should make mine mystical, shake your ass. Maybe I should make that my karaoke song.
You could just instantly become a TikTok star if you just decided one day I'm gonna bring it back, and the internet would explode. It would melt down. We'd have to shut it down for a day. Nick Hoult back doing his thing.
I think it would be good for my career if I did do that. So
I think so. I think so. I think so.
As soon as we hang up, I'm gonna Google local karaoke bar and I'm gonna go do it on a Wednesday on a Wednesday afternoon.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are you scared by? Because for me, I've got a few, right? I'm scared of flying. I'm scared of spiders. I've got a list. We all have a list. The good thing about this time of year, I guess, is that Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. Because sometimes the scariest thing is actually not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. I've certainly benefited from therapy, and friends and family have too, and that's why BetterHelp is such an important sponsor of Happy, Sad, Confused. Therapy can help you deal with those fears and those challenges in everyday life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It is designed to be convenient and flexible and suited to your very busy schedule. All you have to do, they make it so easy. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and you get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch to your therapist at any time for no additional charges. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/HSC today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/HSC. Okay, let's hit some of these other wonderful films. The Order couldn't be more different than these other two. Reteaming with Justin Kurtzell. As I understand, a pretty intense filmmaker. I think I've interviewed him actually about the Ned Kelly gang.
Yeah. Did you find him intense when you?
A bit.
Really?
Is he intense? Is that accurate or no?
You know what? He can be, but he's also not. He's full of so much love. And I thought going into the Kelly gang, I was like, oh, this is going to be full on. But actually, he's very funny and light. And a lot of the time, you'll be doing a scene and he'll shout out something I remember doing the scene in that where I'm sat on the sofa in just my socks and a pipe, naked apart from that, talking to George Mackay. And we're doing the scene, and then Justin yells out from the other room. He goes, "Ask him if he loves you. Ask him if he wants to kiss," or something like that. And I was like, what? And I started giggling. He's like, "Go on, do it." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." Justin also has a way of looking at his characters not with an empathy, but with an understanding, and crafting them in a full 3D world, and not just, really exploring the gray area of human nature, as opposed to just going, all right, this is good and bad, and off we go. Yeah. So I had and also his ability to come up with new ways of working as an actor. He sent through manifestos before we started shooting, where it would be things like, some things where he'd be like, "Oh, send me a voice note talking about the guns you own or how you feel about America," but then also like write a letter to your loved ones where you're about to die, and write a letter to them about how you feel. And when you land in Calgary, provide for the group of actors that are around you in your group, take them for dinner, take them fishing, all these things that just make you feel slightly ingrained in the character in a way, so that the acting kind of becomes less of a performance, I suppose.
Did you look at other, I mean, obviously this is a real figure, but like this is a pattern. Obviously, we've seen men like this before and after,
Mhm.
these charismatic leaders, whether, I think of like, the David Koresh's of the world, Jim Jones, etc. Like, is that an interesting rabbit hole to go down to see the common denominator of these kind of folks?
There's so many rabbit holes with these sorts of characters.
Yeah.
And it would depend. We'd watch, there was also a long list of movies and reading, and whether it was reading things, that Bob Matthews would read, reading the Turner Diaries or
Right.
Oswald Spengler and these ideas, and then, or like watch documentaries about Rudy Ridge, even though that happened after the events in Astoria. How the government can sometimes mishandle these sorts of events as well, and how that then emotionally affects people in terms of what they feel towards their beliefs. So there's all sorts of rabbit holes to go down, and I actually did find deep in the web somewhere, a recording of Bob Matthews, so I could listen to him give his one of his speeches,
Wow.
which was interesting because it was actually kind of not long before filming started that I found it. And before then, I'd already worked on a voice, an accent for Bob. We'd read The Silent Brotherhood, the book the film's based on, and gone into like where he was from, how he would have talked, the different sounds have been specific with his accent. But then I found this recording and I was like, oh, well, now I can really pick out the sounds. But also his voice wasn't as I had crafted it. His voice was kind of less, it was kind of higher pitched and almost a little bit airier than I thought it would be. And so I sent the recording to Justin, and I'd already been sending him so many voice notes and recordings and whatever and blah, blah, in the voice that I had interpreted. I was like, which one do you want me to do? Do you want me to flip and do like one that's more closer to Bob, or do you want me to stick with the one I've got? And he said, stick with the one you've got. He's like, I prefer that, which is kind of a great thing about playing a real character that isn't so known. You don't have to do an impression. It can be a ghost or an interpretation.
No, it's an exceptional performance, and so fun to see you and Jude kind of like, chew it up.
That was also one of the fun things that Justin did that I didn't know. He told Jude to follow me for a day, and we were kept separate until we met.
That's crazy.
In a scene, we didn't hang out. Justin said to me, he said, I don't want you to be friends with Jude. I don't want you hanging out with him. And I was like, all right, cool.
You're like, I was kind of hoping to be friends with Jude Law, but okay.
I was like, I'm a big fan. Are you sure I can't just take him some tea or something? So we were kept separate, and it was funny because all those things, I'm not a method actor, but anything that emotionally or physically makes things feel a little bit more real is helpful. Whatever that might be, if it's staying in an accent, if it's hanging out, doing things that make you feel more like the character, whatever. So then it's like being kept separate. If you're good friends with someone and then obviously when you see their face, it makes you happy and you're like, oh yeah, great. I didn't really know Jude at all. And then suddenly there's this element of like, we're meeting for the first time in the story and in real life in some ways. So there's an adrenaline to that can't be faked. So it was great.
Okay, so then on the spectrum here, okay, so we figured out Clint, super chill, makes the chill sets that like everybody wants to be on. Kurtzel, seemingly intense, but can have a quip or two to put you off guard. Then we got Eggers. Let's talk Robert Eggers. Nosferatu. I think I told you when I ran into you in Toronto, this is my most anticipated film. I haven't seen this one yet. But Eggers creates a world like very few can. Had you been talking to him about doing this one or others? Had you been in the Eggers orbit for a few years? Like, how did this one happen?
I had first met Rob just after The Witch came out. I loved that movie. And I felt like he was a true master of creating tension and a singular voice in filmmaking, and so we'd met, I think I was filming in New York at the time. So we'd gone to like a bar in Brooklyn and just hung out after that. And then kind of very loosely stayed in touch over the years. And then there had been a version of this film maybe a year or two before this where we'd briefly spoken about it. And then it all kind of went away again. And then I think it was about a year later, he got in touch again and said, hey, I think it's gonna go and would like you to be part of it.
And I just feel like Rob is, first of all, like when I look at The Northman and particularly The Lighthouse, he's making such unique, special films, but also, getting some of the the best performances I've ever seen. You know, if you watch Willem and Rob in The Lighthouse, I'm blown away by their acting. So I was like, I will do anything Rob Eggers is directing, and that would continue forever for me, because he's very singular in his approach. This is obviously, you know, a reimagining, I suppose, of the 1922 version of Nosferatu, but Rob has gone in and really focused a lot on Ellen and her, you know, Lily Rose Depp's character, the internal evil that she's battling and the lust that she has, and this connection between her and Count Orlok, Bill Skarsgård's character, and you know, their performances are amazing. But also Rob as a director is so prepared, as opposed to, I mean, that sounds like I think that Justin and Clint aren't prepared, but so meticulously prepared in terms of how he writes the script, the detail within that, the language being, you know, obviously era specific and tight and complete, the descriptive language within it, and then his storyboarding. You know, the whole movie was storyboarded, where him and Jaron, his DP, they formulated every shot. I've never experienced this. They've built sets for that movie whereby a lot of the takes we shot on film, and a lot of the scenes would be like, there would be, I don't know, 2 shots for the scene or 3 shots. So the camera, everything has to happen in camera. And so it would be, they'd know that the dolly would, you know, start here and then the camera would move here, but because of what you see in the shot at the beginning, there has to be a wall there, but then to get to where we want to go, that wall has to fly away. So I've never been on sets like this before, where everything is so thought through and planned, and Rob's so specific in terms of the dialogue, the framing, the costumes, which cigar your character should be smoking, all of that, that I just think it makes to a really transportive cinema experience, because, you know, you're going to this gothic horror movie that feels completely authentic. And it feels, to me, watching the movie, it feels like classic cinema from another era. You know, it doesn't feel like a movie that gets made, I don't think, anymore.
Did you, and I don't know if you knew Bill prior to this, Bill Skarsgård, but I'm fascinated with what he's doing with his career. And it's similar to you, like, you guys both do not shy away, despite kind of like being like, you know, having the leading man look, and kind of can do that forever for the next 10, 15, 20 years, as long as people want you to do that. You kind of revel in playing also some despicable characters, and Bill is like just leaning into these kind of grotesque, crazy villains. Have you guys kind of like bonded on that level of talking a little bit about like, yeah, we can play the straight arrow hero, but it's fun to play the baddie?
First, I love Bill. I'd met him once before, just at a party, and really liked him there. But also, yeah, I think he's so talented. I think he's a true master of being able to completely vanish into characters. So I just enjoy watching it. And what he's done with Count Orlok in this is really special. I remember the first time Rob played me a recording of the accent he was working on his phone in rehearsals. And it was so weird, because you know the sound on a phone is so tinny and like doesn't fill a room, but the voice he had created filled the room, and it was so imposing and peculiar and lived in and accurate in terms of like this history and geography, but also like just real. And that's what I think is so special about how he's created this character, because, you know, for all intents and purposes, it's the monster in this movie, but it's not how he's played it. He has made it real and authentic to the world, and terrifying, but also, you know, imposing and rich with, it's just imbued with so many things. It's really exciting to be in scenes. He's scary. It's scary to be in scenes with him. He's physically, you know, Bill, he's tall. I'm pretty tall, but I end up a lot of the time, you know, in scenes with people where they're like, and this person's meant to be physically imposing, and I'm like, well, they're not, because I'm like 6'2" or 3, and I'm like, okay, I'll act scared, but it just doesn't feel like I'm that scared of this person. But Bill, you know, particularly that character, he's tall, and he had this big costume. He's got quite a noble look, this magnificent moustache. He's kind of weirdly, oddly handsome. He's not fully a monster. It looks like somewhat, you know, this real Count. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful performance he's given. I'm excited for people to see it, because it doesn't feel like he's just playing a monster in a movie and trying to be scary. It feels like he's a real living being or creature that has emotions underneath of it all, as well as being this this evil spirit. So it's exciting, and yeah, I like it. I like Bill's career as well. I think he does take risks and doesn't take the obvious route, and I think that's it's more fun for me as a film fan to watch him do that and to watch him play all these different characters, because I'm like, oh, I want to see what Bill's doing in a movie, because I know it's not going to be
right,
simple and obvious.
Well, and again, I apply that to you as well, and that leads us kind of like the journey, if you'll indulge me, a little bit of the journey I'd love to explore of getting to Luthor in Superman. I know we have a long way to go talking about that, but to contextualize for folks, I mean, look, we've talked a lot about kind of these big auditions you've been on over the years and these close calls that have come or not. This came relatively, like just a year or two after, very, very close call on Batman. So were you... Was that I don't know. I mean, that's got to be a blow. You're so close to something that you know is going to be a really cool opportunity. Like, were you reticent about going in again for another iconic superhero after going through the emotional whatever it was to almost get Batman?
Yeah, of course it's an emotional blow. Because your imagination doesn't know. You know, like, you're aware on a practical level. You're like, I know that I'm auditioning, you know, against Rob, and Rob's fantastic in that movie, and I think that was the right decision. But also, you get excited about the prospect. You know, Matt's a fantastic director, and the script and everything. I was like, this is going to be a cool movie. I want to be part of it, and a brilliant character. So then, yeah, there's obviously a period of like, before you can, it's like a weird period where before you can get to the acceptance and like see the movie and be like, oh yeah, that works, that was the right choice, you have to go through the period of like, oh, what could I have done differently, why not me? Like, do you know, you run through all those things, obviously. And then was I hesitant about going in? I think under different circumstances I would have been, yeah, because it's a lot to put yourself through emotionally, and also even more so than, it's also weird now that this process has suddenly somewhat become public.
I know. Yeah, that's the weird part.
You know, because there's plenty of times that people go and audition for things and you never hear about it. You never know. And it's like, that's happening all the time. But now there's this weird thing where it's like, and it's only public for people that care. Most people day to day don't care about this stuff. But like, it feels weird then, because you're like, oh, and you know, it's one thing to have your failures. It's another thing to have them like publicly broadcast seemingly to everyone.
Not to mention it's happening like almost in real time. It's like these things like leak out and you're like, well, he's meeting on Friday, and it's like, what? You're in the middle of it. I can only imagine your perspective.
Yeah, adds an element of drama to it, I suppose. But that's also interesting. I mean, I remember, you know, a week before we did the Batman test, I was driving in my car and I had the radio on, and they were talking on the radio about how Rob was going to be the new Batman, and I was like, it's not confirmed yet. I was like, I'm auditioning next weekend. I was like, give me a chance.
You call into the radio show, guys. Nick from London here.
Hey, it's me. So yeah, I would say I would be hesitant about going through that process again. But then at the same time, I think James Gunn's such a fantastic director. And I was so excited about what he was going to be building with DC and with Peter Safran that I'd spoken to him, and kind of, I don't know, the idea of being a part of what they were building was exciting to me. And I think there was also an element of, when we spoke, of this idea that because they knew that I'd been through that process, that they kind of didn't necessarily want me to have to go through that again, which is very kind of them, it's caring of them. So there was kind of this element of them being like, hey, we like you as an actor, etc., etc. We kind of want you to be in this world. And so it was then actually quite a nice element of like going into screen test. It was weird because I literally finished shooting The Order, I think, on Thursday, flew back to LA maybe the Friday, did the screen test for Superman Saturday, Sunday, then flew to Savannah on the Monday to start shooting Juror on the Wednesday. So it was like, in terms of like gymnastics, physically but mentally as well, of being like, okay, we'll finish shooting that, make sure you know the lines for these scenes for the screen test, and then you're going to run down to be with Clint and start that. That was a lot, but also it felt in many ways like a not a win-win situation, because obviously that's not how you go into those things. But I took an element of pressure off myself, I suppose, because I was like, hey, you're also just going in to see if you and James like working together and enjoy that process. And so it wasn't like, this has to be everything and right now. And, you know, so that was kind of a better approach, perhaps mentally as well for me.
So do you have secret selfies of yourself as both Batman and Superman in your iPhone currently?
Yeah, I do.
And Lex.
Amazing.
Maybe for Halloween I'll be Wonder Woman.
So, okay, again, I know we have time, but talk to me what you fell in love with about this character in particular, about your take on Lex. We've seen Lex played by icons, Gene Hackman. It's hard to top him, but you're not about topping him. You're doing something different. What's different and exciting about your Lex?
No, it's not. It's never about that. It's about, I think you take from all the previous interpretations of the character and the comics and you build upon it. That's the fun thing in like movies and comics and all media in a sense of the history of all of it. It's all kind of a building amalgamation of it. And then there's weird connections I make where I'm like, oh, you know, I'm working with Clint, who obviously directed Unforgiven, and that's what Gene won one of his Oscars for, his brilliant performance in that. And, you know, watching Michael Rosenbaum as well, and all these brilliant people that have played that character. First and foremost, it always comes back to James and his style and how he crafts his movies, which I'm just a fan of. And I think it's the perfect tone and world that he's built with this script. And then it's about emotionally just trying to tap in and understand the character in a way that makes it real to you and authentic to you. And I think that's what's really fun for me in playing Lex. It's funny because when I first read the script, I remember reading it, and there was a little inkling part of me that was like, ooh, I think you'd have fun playing Lex. And I kind of didn't say anything. And then when James called me to play Lex, I did kind of cackle, I think is how I describe it. I didn't say anything. He said, how would you, he said, I think he said, we want you to play Lex. And I just laughed. Because I think there was something in my instinct when I first read the script where I was like, I think that's more what I should be doing in this story. And so then I was very excited because I was like, oh, it felt like universe-wise everything had aligned in a way that made sense to me, and I was like, oh, your instinct, I override my instinct sometimes. I think my gut, perhaps to my better judgment, to my worst judgment. And I was like, oh, you kind of knew right back then that was probably the right thing to happen, and now it has. So then it was like quite then it was just an exciting process because, you know, going back, watching the previous movies, but then, you know, reading comics, reading books, trying to understand Lex physically and emotionally and just dig into that to give, you know, hopefully a real performance that's got real emotion and some good stuff, grounding it in something that people will enjoy watching.
And last thing on that, was there a comic you kept coming back to? There's so many to pick and choose from. Which one did you find most helpful?
There's so many, and James has already spoken about quite a few that influence obviously the overall film and All-Star Superman. And there's little things that you draw from each, Birthright and all those comics. But the one that I really rung, and I read a lot, but the one that I found myself picking up again a lot was Luthor, Man of Steel. There was a lot in that I kind of just resonated with me.
All right, more to come on that. We'll continue that conversation. I feel like, you know, what's funny, looking back at our past conversations, is how often Tom Cruise has come up. Way before you even met with him about Top Gun and then Mission, we were talking about you working with Tom. I find it so funny.
Oh yeah? Really?
Yeah, truly. And then, of course, that almost happens on both Top Gun and really almost happens on Mission, which I guess the great scheduling is the one that kind of screwed that one up.
Well, we were about to start filming, and then it was COVID. We were in Venice, and we were meant to be shooting, you know, those scenes that happen in Venice, and then the carnival got shut down, and then Italy started to shut down, and then we flew out, and then production got delayed, and then I couldn't make the movie because of scheduling.
Is that weird to see? Because I assume you saw the film since, because Isai Morales is obviously not someone you're usually going up against for roles because different age, etc. Was that a much different kind of character than you were even going to play?
I don't know, because I don't know how I would have played it. I mean, I knew roughly what we were doing in prep and stuff, and it probably was fairly different. Of course it would be fairly different because we're different people. I like what he did. I thought he did a great job. It probably would have been very different. But I think those movies also evolve a lot throughout shooting the process.
Famously so.
Chris and Tom have. It's not like there was ever a solid script and a version of that character that you'd go, that was what it was going to be. It's very fluid in terms of how they create. So it's very difficult to say what would have been.
Is that a continuing conversation? I feel like you are inevitably obviously going to work with Tom. He clearly is a fan of yours. Are you?
I would love to. I haven't spoken to him for a little while. But I love that. I love Top Gun. I think he's what's he making at the moment? He's doing the Inarritu movie. Yeah. That I'm hyped for, because I'm like, oh yeah, let's see that. That's like, I think that's an interesting and inspired choice for him to go and make that film. So I'm a fan. Hopefully at one point we'll do something together, maybe.
Did you catch up on the other side of the comic book world? Did you catch up on Deadpool and Wolverine?
You know what? I haven't seen it yet. Which I'm probably the only person in the world not to have seen it.
Okay.
I've been going to see stuff, I just haven't seen that. Sometimes when a film's like so big and so popular right away, I kind of hold off and go and watch some of the smaller things that are out, and then I'm like, I'll see that down the road.
What's your favorite of your X-Men run? Do you have a favorite of the films, just from a character or just how it turned out perspective?
Days of Future Past would be the favorite movie for me. I remember reading the script and being like, whoa. Partly on a level of like, joining both casts together meant that there were scenes where I'd be walking down, the corridor of Cerebro, and I'd look over and Hugh Jackman would be there playing Wolverine. And, I watched him play Wolverine when I was 10 or 11, watching the original X-Men movie. So I was like, this is crazy. But then also, I just felt like the story was really, really strong, and the emotional, it was fun to make. I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I spoke to McAvoy recently, and he also...
You did?
He loved his First Class as well, but I think selfishly from a character perspective, I think he really enjoyed what he got to do as Charles in Days of Future Past.
Right.
Yeah, First Class was also magic in terms of the making it, and that was the first one and for our group, and so making all those new friends and everything, that holds a dear place in my heart as well. But I think, for me, I think I got slightly better character stuff in Days of Future Past maybe as well. So,
before I let you go, I do want to mention, we've never on the podcast, because of all this giant gap, we never even talked about The Great, which
oh my gosh,
I know, like we missed that entire era of Nick, and what a fucking great show! What like an amazing characters you got to play.
Thanks, man.
Truly. Do you miss it? Do you miss that dialogue? What a delicious set and scripts to utter as an actor, I would imagine.
You know what? I do really miss The Great. Tony McNamara's writing is so singular, and the dialogue, the like everything about that show was so much fun. All the cast, working with Elle, and I miss the character, because honestly, it's very rare that you get a character that's so fully realized on the page. I think like he is, and so ridiculous but fun to play. And it was weird doing like the last scenes. The last day of shooting, Alan, like the last scenes together as those characters anyway, it was like, we're both really upset. And I was like, and I knew I was going to miss it deeply, and I still do. I knew it was obviously the right thing to finish, but also it's rare that you get to play a character for some, we did 2.5 seasons, 3 seasons I played that character. So it's rare that you play a character for as long, but also have so much fun playing it. And I do miss, I miss the dialogue. The other day we did one of those interviews where it was like they run through old lines and you have to guess what they're from, and instantly like the ones from The Great would come out and I'd be just dying with laughter because I'd drive to work in the car and I'd be learning my lines and I'd look at the page and I'd be like, this is so good. I will never get to say anything like this ever again in life. So yeah, I enjoyed that character a lot, and I'm working with Toni and Alan and all that team. So hopefully we'll get to do more down the road because I love what they're creating.
Hey, I have good news. In the past, you told me, which I never knew, that you were up for Harry Potter and in fact had multiple callbacks. They're casting for the new Harry Potter, so it's not too late, Nick. Are you ready to do it?
I think it's about. I think I can probably play 11 still.
Never comment on the height. Just like Harry.
I'll just walk in with some glasses and a scar on my head and be like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm ready. You know what? Chris Columbus, who obviously directed initially that, produced Nosferatu, so I got to spend time with him on that. It's so weird how everything you kind of end up running into people, and also made one of my all-time favorite movies, Mrs. Doubtfire. So that was fun and exciting to spend time with him. I'm a fan of his too. But yes, I'm ready to play Harry Potter. I'm just waiting for the phone.
Thank you for your service.
Phone to ring.
Yeah. Which is more likely? Is it James Bond or Harry Potter? If you had to choose,
it's Harry.
Yeah, obviously.
I can play 11 years old. There's no question about it.
All right, we're going to end with the happy, sad, confused, profoundly random questions. Nick, are you ready? Here we go.
I'm ready.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
What do you collect, if anything?
What have I been collecting recently? Books.
Okay. We get it. You're smart. You read. Okay.
Old, nearly empty tubes of toothpaste.
Better. That's what I was looking for. What's the wallpaper on your phone?
Oh, it's my wife and kids.
Very nice.
It's all my movie posters. It's my headshot.
Yeah,
it's my resume. It's my CV. Ice skating. Spanish.
Killing me softly. I get it. Okay. Last actor you were mistaken for?
I feel like there was one the other day, and someone was talking to me, and they were like, and I was like, they think I'm someone completely different. And I was just accepting the compliment. I can't remember who it was.
That's okay.
I get Sam Claflin a lot.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, we've probably spoken about that. The local cafe in London, they were convinced I was him for so many years that I went with it again. And what was the movie he made with Emilia Clarke called?
I know exactly. Yeah.
You know that one? They would always ask me about that, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd just go with it. I'd be like, I was good in that, and yeah, it was great.
What's the worst note a director has ever given you?
Act better, but it's also kind of the best note in some ways.
Does that help? Really?
Well, I mean, you can do what you want with that.
I suppose. Okay. And finally, happy, sad, confused. An actor who makes you happy always. You see them on screen, you light up, you're having a good day.
Willem Dafoe.
I like it. What's a movie that always makes you sad?
Always makes me happy. A movie that always makes me sad. I'm glad that's the question and not an actor that always makes you sad.
Myself, when I see my face.
You know what? Up.
Yeah. God. Yeah. That's a good barometer whether you're a human being or not. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And very appropriate for our constant food conversations, a food that makes you confused. What food confuses you?
Dried mango. Really?
Like too sweet? You'd rather just have the fresh mango? It's about the drying process?
It's not confusing about that. It's because I always, whenever I eat it, I go, do I like you more than fresh mango? And I think I do, because often fresh mango isn't ripe enough. or you've gone through the chaos, because I can't cut mangoes very well, the chaos of trying to get in there. And then when I'm eating the fresh mango, I'm going, is dried mango better because I didn't have to go through all this process and you're not as ripe or sweet as I think you should be? So it's a never-ending battle inside my brain between fresh and dried mango.
All right, we did it. I think we had a semi-intelligent chat today. It's
Almost.
always good to see you. Almost. We gave it a shot. It won't be 5 more years, and we will see each other soon, hopefully in person. Congratulations on the bevy of riches this fall from Nick Hoult.
Thanks, man. Very good to see you. Sorry it's not in person, but
Next time. No, I appreciate it.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.